What I'd like to do is just very quickly sketch out what we see as potential landing zones across a range of issues, and this is informed largely by our very deep engagement with negotiators over the last couple of years, but also what we've been observing here. And frankly, I haven't heard anything here that has significantly changed our view on the potential landing zones. And I wouldn't hold these out as predictions, but rather our sense of where there is strong convergence toward achievable and desirable outcomes. So first, on the question of a long-term goal, I think the agreement will reaffirm 2 degrees, will in some way reference 1.5, and will probably include some language translating 2 degrees into more action-oriented terms, whether that's decarbonization or climate neutrality or carbon neutrality. A little hard to anticipate at the moment, but I think we'll see some language along those lines, not necessarily as a goal per se, perhaps just as an expression of what needs to happen in order to get us to 2 degrees. Differentiation, I think we're clearly moving beyond the binary approach to differentiation to a more nuanced approach, and how that is reflected in the agreement will vary across the different elements of the agreement. On mitigation, we see de facto self-differentiation through the nationally determined contributions, but there will need to be some language in the agreement putting parameters around that, so it's not full flexibility. And I think one strong possibility there is language setting the expectation that in defining their own contributions, all countries are putting forward their best effort and that they will progress over time. So I would characterize that more as an expectation than an obligation. There are obviously legal issues in the area of mitigation. I think I'll leave that to Lisa to address. On finance, developing countries want and really deserve assurance of continued flows beyond 2020. Developed countries want some assurance that the onus will not be entirely on them. So one is greater certainty about the flows, the other is broadening the donor base. I think what we'll likely see is some reaffirmation of developed country obligations, which are rooted in the convention, and likely coupled with that some reaffirmation of the $100 billion goal as a floor going forward. I wouldn't necessarily see that in the agreement itself, but somewhere in the Paris package. And then along with that, speaking to the broadening of the donor base, I think we'll see some language encouraging contributions from other parties willing or in a position to do so. But you will maintain differentiation. While you're broadening the donor base beyond developed, you will not be putting those other countries on the same plane as developed countries. I think in one case it'll be an obligation, in another case it will be an encouragement or an expectation. So that's sort of an example of the more nuanced approach to differentiation we see emerging. On transparency, here too, I think we're going to see a transition from the current system, the current bifurcated system, which sets different requirements for developed and developing, toward a common framework where everybody's working toward the same standards of transparency and accountability, but it will provide flexibility for countries that need more time to get there, and it will provide support for building capacity in those countries so they can get there. Finally, on ambition, for us, a really critical piece is the cycle, the stock taking and updating of NDCs. These often get conflated. I think what we'll see is a staged approach where you first have a stock taking of collective progress, followed by countries offering up new nationally determined contributions. So one is collective, one is individual. And I think there's fairly broad acceptance of all of this. The critical issue here is the timing of the first one. The earlier, the better. Hopefully, somewhere in the 2020 neighborhood, we can see that process happen, which will give us a decent shot at raising ambition heading into the next decade.